Another element that I think they can learn from is quality circles, or as David Hutchins calls them,
ACA.
self-managing work groups. Self-managing work groups.
That one rings a bell, yeah.
Yeah, self-managing work groups is what our guru in the UK, David Hutchins, calls it, and he knows a lot about quality circles. But so the idea of quality circles that we use, and the Japanese have like 1 million of them going on at any one time.
Oh, yeah.
They have these. They have 1 million work groups with 10 million people involved in Japan at this very minute, working on using these little groups of workers. They might, with a supervisor that's tied to them, but they have autonomy from the management level and the executive level to solve problems themselves and come up with solutions themselves and implement solutions themselves. And it's extremely powerful, extremely productive way of doing it. So what can project managers learn from this? Well, project managers have to learn to educate their team members in problem solving and for example, using define, measure, analyze, improve, control, so that when the team member finds a problem, it's not always just raise an issue and go to the project manager. Hey, project manager, you solve this problem for me because you're the project manager and I'm just a team member. The project manager should be pushing back and saying, okay, thank you for identifying the problem. I'd like you to choose 2 or 3 or 4 people in your area, maybe somebody upstream, downstream. If you're a developer, you choose a tester. If you're a product architect, you might get a business analyst. Tell me who you need, and you are going to work out a way to solve this problem. And by the way, this is the scientific way to solve a problem. You define the problem. You gather evidence, you measure the problem, you do analysis of the evidence, root cause analysis, and then you present a solution, and we look at the possible solution. This isn't being done. We like to find a problem and throw it over the fence to somebody else to solve the problem. You were I know you were training people in exactly this, aren't you? You were trying to get this point across to your customers about this identification of problems, but then how do you solve it as a self-managing work group?
It's strategy, and I literally just pulled it right out of Karl von Clausewitz's book. The Prussian general who he lost to Napoleon, but it was the fact that he lost that made the book so great. But I pulled the strategy right out of there, and I think what a lot of a lot of us who've done this for a while have is, I call it like the prioritization heuristic, which is almost like that kind of impact difficulty, like, thinking through how to prioritize like the most impactful things for the least effort. And it's because that's our bread and butter of our job, basically. So it's 90% of what we do just all the time, during a Kaizen event, is this chunk of work actually going to move the needle on what we're trying to do? If not, great, we're going to, not worry about it right now. And that's something I think strategically in project planning and kind of selection and scoping, that doesn't happen. And a lot of what projects look like now are there these big, grandiose, massive initiatives that encompass, dozens of people and departments and, interests that have to be balanced and everything. And so your ability to make progress is itself kind of hindered by just the amount of communication that has to take place within that group. And you can picture it literally like an army, if you've got to communicate across this massive front line, and your means of which, to do so is carrier, basically the equivalent of carrier pigeon, because that's, what email really is. It's a very fast carrier pigeon. Then your line's not really going to move very effectively. And if you're trying to coordinate, an assault that's going to do something, it's going to culminate, very, very quickly, meaning you're not going to, be able to continue on that trajectory for very long. Your resources are going to become exhausted, get, sidetracked defending against other threats, whatever it might be. And you can almost perfectly, analogize that to, just about every project that takes place in private equity. We're going to save $300 million this year on blah, 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 blah. And we're going to do it through all these projects. And, we have Excel sheets that are 400 line items long that we put into Smartsheet Gantt and, assign them out to people. And nobody considers that, 20% of these resources are doing 80% of the work on 14-hour days, hate their jobs, are actively looking for other work. Again, themselves either bottlenecks or dealing with other bottlenecks in the process. And a lot of it could have been avoided just by scoping the thing down in the first place and focusing on almost like a, again, a Kaizen circle activity, which is hyper focused. The team is the end is right there. We can see where we're going. It's very clear. We've got line of sight to how to get there. To Deming's point, you're not just assigning arbitrary targets to people and not giving them the means by which to achieve them. And of course, it doesn't make any progress. If the initiative is we're going to, again, save $300 million in procurement or something. Okay, great. Well, we can do that tomorrow by not procuring things. Like, then we've saved potentially more than 300 million. Like, if we don't procure things and we don't produce, we generate zero operating costs and everyone is happy, right?
Wonderful.
So like these a lot of them just don't make any sense, and they kind of punt the strategic thinking in the wrong direction. So the people who should be having the vision, the executives who should be scoping these things to this group is going to work on this group are kind of in this like nebulous world of like, I'm the liaison between this big market and like, my minions in the organization. When in reality, it's not that. It's you need to be scoping what your resources are working on, allocating that time and focus at a very specific and, quantitative level instead of just, this department is going to be 80% loaded this year, but nobody has any idea what that actually means. And so these things get out of hand almost immediately. And it's honestly amazing that so many of them, just through sheer brute force alone, make it anywhere, at all.